Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode we're talking about the Chicago Bears 2024 NFL Draft Class based on data. So we're going to be looking at production, athleticism, and other statistical factors to grade their class. Stay tuned until the end of the video where we reveal their final draft grade. And with that, let's talk about how I graded them. So first off, I looked at draft pick approximate value. Draft pick approximate value is the average approximate value of the picks that, or the selection that they had. So here's an example of it. When you look at picks 1 through 5, the average AV of picks selected between picks 1 through 5 is 98.84 out of 100. So you're going to be grading, or at least I'm going to be grading these picks based on one, their data grade, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide, but two, I'm going to be grading them based on how well they did for where they picked that player. That's definitely going to be a big factor in these things. And what is a data grade? Well, the data grade is, or EAV, or expected approximate value grade, is known as a ceiling grade. So what this does is it takes the average data in terms of athleticism, production, strength of schedule, strength of team, age, all those things are boiled into one number, and that one number is going to give you the potential of a prospect. If you want to learn more about this method of data collection, go to my top 50 prospects video on this channel. It goes over all the correlations at every single position and shows you why this matters. Definitely go see that video. I think it'll give you some insights into things to kind of understanding everything a little bit more. Now, in terms of limiting factors, so what are the things that can affect the data? Because as much as I can tell you that a guy tested really well, there are some unforeseen things that can happen. Well, one of those things is the coaching can affect the development or lack of development of a prospect. Regardless of how good a prospect is, if he goes to a bad team with bad coaching, he's not going to do anything at the next level. Same thing goes with the publicity of the media market can influence the perception of a prospect, leading to inflated grades. Psychological and mental makeup, which is kind of like the Johnny Manziel metric to a certain extent. If you're not mentally able to deal with the NFL for whatever reason, and again, it's not the player's fault. It's just that they mentally are not able to deal with it, and that can affect their ability on the football field. Unforeseen injuries can lead to inconsistent outcomes, and also substitution bias, which is allows for the possibility that coaches switch from higher costing prospects to lower cost but lower quality. So you will always consistently see NFL teams drafting prospects to replace other prospects because they don't want to pay them top bill. That happens a lot. That is just a nature of the business, and you'll have players who probably shouldn't be playing, but they are because they're cheaper. That's just a fact of that's just a fact of things. Okay, so that's definitely a thing there. Next up, in terms of the needs for the Bears, these are all of the prospects that the Bears had coming into this year in terms of their data grades. NFL positional value is how they have done in the NFL, and then data grades are on the right. That's actually what their data grade was coming out of college. So there are some prospects that are a little young in their career, so they still have time to get better in terms of these numbers. But this is kind of what you're looking at here. And based on this data right here, this is how I formulated the needs for the roster. I did the quarterbacks as a 16, just a 50 percentile, because there's a lot of unknowns. You know, the quarterback they have has no NFL data coming into to anything, so I didn't really want to say they had a terrible quarterback, if you will, because he might actually be good. But I just kind of put it at 50 just because of that. But we all know that they need a quarterback. We all know that. They do need a wide receiver. And in terms of defense, they have edge rusher issues. They definitely need some edge rushers. They need some defensive tackles, and they also could use some linebacker depth and some safety depth, here and there. But their defense is pretty decent, all things considered, except for the edge and the defensive tackle position. Taking a look at the biggest factors in my final grade. So before we get into the actual picks, these are the three things I look for, okay? Did they meet their roster needs? That's a big thing. Two, did they draft good prospects? Because just because you draft a wide receiver or quarterback or an edge or interior defensive alignment, that's something that you need. If that prospect is not a very good prospect, it doesn't matter who you drafted. So data grades is kind of determining who's good and who's not. Typically, with the data grades that I have, the vast majority, about 86 to 90%, of all starting NFL players typically had 70 or higher data grades. So it's safe to say that if they don't have a 70 or higher data grade, they're probably not going to be a contributor on the roster long term for the most part. You're going to have outliers here and there, but that's a big thing to look at. Also, did they draft prospects that had the data potential to outperform their draft status? This is a big thing, in terms of draft evaluation, because just like I said before, if data grades have correlations to success. And if you are taking a player in the fifth, the sixth, the seventh round, and they don't have a 90 plus percentile data grade, it's very unlikely they're going to outperform their draft status. It just is. It's very unlikely that's going to be the case if they don't have something that could make them outperform their draft status. So that's another factor to kind of consider here. So that takes us to pick number one, which is Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC. Based on his data grade, he had a 95.26 out of 100. His projected floor grade, which is the average quarterback score for quarterbacks that were taken at pick one, is 95.27 out of 100. His balance grade, which is a mix of those two, is 95.27, or which is basically like 95.26 and a half, but you round up, it gets to 0.27. And then the AV, or approximate value score, 4 picks taken there is 99.61 out of 100 for him. His overall pick grade would be an A. I would say so. Based on his data, so based on his mobile quarterback score, which takes a look at how good of a runner he is, or his ability to make plays with his feet, he did well in terms of that. He had a 80 percentile overall mobile quarterback score. The only area that was a little below average was his average yards per rush, but overall decent mobile quarterback ability. You're not expecting Caleb Williams to be like Justin Fields and get 1,000 yards rushing. In fact, if he was getting 1,000 yards rushing, I don't think the Bears would be doing too hot. Now, if you look at the passing efficiency, though, if you look at this particular number for him, he did exceptionally well. This is the biggest thing that really matters to quarterbacks is their passing efficiency. And based on his passing efficiency scores, he had a 97 percentile BQS, or best quarterback efficiency score, and his CQS, or career quarterback efficiency score, was 93.03 out of 100. When you look at the all-pro averages at the position, he pretty much hits all those areas that you're looking for, which gives him all-pro potential. So Caleb Williams is a player that has all-pro Hall of Fame potential, and I'm very excited to see what he does on the Bears. But I'm also excited because they followed up that pick with Rome Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington. His data grade was 95.88 out of 100. His floor grade, which is all the wide receivers that tested like him with his data grade in his pick range, was 86.15. And then his balance grade would probably be about 91.01 out of 100. The pick AV, or the average AV of players taken at pick 9, is 96.14 out of 100. I would give this overall grade for him an A for this selection. Looking at his offensive market share production scores, or why he tested so high, was he had really good receiving market share production, total offensive market share, and 83 percentile touchdown market share. So he had great numbers all around, of indicative of a starter to potential Pro Bowl wide receiver. When you look at his efficiency scores, he had near elite touchdown percentage, which is touchdowns per touch, and near elite yards per reception. So he was incredibly productive and incredibly efficient with the football, which are two things that aren't always the same. On top of that, he had great athleticism testing, 89 percentile in terms of explosiveness, 85 percentile in terms of speed, and 93.69 percentile in terms of flexibility for his size. Pretty much hits above the All-Pro, Pro Bowl, and starter averages for the position. So he's very athletic. He has near elite production and near elite athleticism traits. And in terms of his adjusted production traits, in terms of his age, how well he produced for the team that he was on, and all those other sort of factors, he did exceptionally well. Because the thing is, he was on a Washington football team that was a very strong team, and he was the best wide receiver out of that group. So that tells you something about him as a prospect, on top of the level of competition that he faced there as well. So he is going to be potentially a very good wide receiver prospect, and was a great pick at pick 9. Then, of course, we get to pick 75, which is Kieran, offensive tackle from Yale. His data grade, or ceiling, would be 93.97 out of 100. His projected floor grade is 86.25 out of 100. His balance grade is 89.16. and the average pick AV or average AV for where he was selected is 70.27 out of 100. Overall pick grade for him would be a B plus for him. Taking a look at his athleticism traits, he had a 92.31 in terms of his speed score, with not much else to really project with him, but good all around data for him. This is where things kind of fell or gone off track a little bit. Is day 1 and 2 of the Bears was great for the 3 picks they got, fantastic. And then something happened in day 3. What happened? They picked a punter with the 4th round pick at pick 122. Here are the facts with this pick. Data grade wise, the average approximate value score of a punter taken in the 4th round is 53.80 out of 100. And these are for essentially starting punters. The vast majority of them are starting punters. So punters are not the most valuable prospects. They're kind of like uh, and they're not even really like kickers. I mean, kickers are more valuable than punters in many ways. They're like fullbacks. Punters are kind of like fullbacks in many ways in terms of their approximate value scores. So it's not the. I'm kind of a little about this pick based on his overall value, because even if he was the best punter ever, he would still be like a 53 percentile punter. So I don't really do punter metrics. I'm just basing it off of the punters that were taken in the 4th round. But that's basically what it is. Now, this pick does have more value than what you usually get at pick 122, because what you usually get is 44.40 out of 100. But it's just not a lot of value. You don't take punters with the 4th pick, especially when you have other needs on the roster, like the edge rusher position, which is one thing that they did hit a little bit. At pick 144, Austin Booker, edge from Kansas. His data grade or ceiling is 72.33 out of 100. His floor was 54.84, and his balance grade would be 63.58 out of 100, with a pick AV of 59.46 out of 100. I would give this overall pick grade a D, maybe a high D would be kind of what I would do it, because there are some concerns with him based on data. So first off, he did have good market share production. So his solo tackle production, his sack production, and his tackle for loss production were very good. But his efficiency was a little uneven. He had above average forced fumble market share with below average pass deflection market share. But the biggest issue is his athleticism testing. He was 12th percentile in terms of explosiveness and 15.99 percentile in terms of speed for his size. These are not the numbers that you want to hit, and a lot of that comes down to his size. He is incredibly undersized for the position. And, if you look at his combine numbers, if he was 270 pounds, they would look decent, but he's not 270 pounds. He's closer to 240 pounds. So that's the biggest issue with Austin Booker, is his overall athleticism traits is the biggest thing that really tanks his profile. Based on his adjusted production traits, though, good age score, good MSA, and good pass rating for him in terms of the data right here. He's closer to the starter averages here. I mean, he could become a long-term starter, but his athleticism is not indicative of a starter. So overall, I would give this pick a D. I think he could become a starter, but he's kind of a fringe prospect for them. And I don't really think he hits their need at edge. I really don't. But we'll kind of see what happens with him. Overall, though, in terms of the final grade, I would give them a C. Did they meet their roster needs? Yes. Did they draft good prospects? Yes. Did they draft prospects that have data potential to outperform their draft status? Yes and no. For the most part, all their picks they had were within range of what you would expect from where they were taken. So Kieran, for example, is probably a little bit better than what's expected where he was selected, but Caleb Williams is a phenomenal prospect, but that's what you're supposed to get with the top pick. Roma Dunze is a phenomenal wide receiver. That's what's expected of the ninth pick. I'm not going to give you extra points just because you took a great player where you're supposed to take a good player. So that's kind of the biggest thing. And then when you add in the fact they drafted a punter, and then they drafted a boomer bust edge rusher that's probably closer to a bust, those are the issues that kind of hurt their overall draft status. But overall, is this going to be a great draft class if Caleb Williams becomes a Hall of Fame quarterback and Roma Dunze becomes a Pro Bowl wide receiver and Kieran becomes a starting, if not really good offensive lineman, yeah, everybody will forget about the fact they drafted a punter and drafted an edge rusher that isn't really playing in the NFL anymore in 4 years. Which, I mean, maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but we'll see. Overall, though, those are my general thoughts on the Chicago Bears in the 2024 NFL Draft Class. Thank you so much for watching. Check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/jcoburn. Also, check out my X, formerly known as Twitter account, at Geometrics, where you can learn more stuff on there as well. Also, consider purchasing the 2024 NFL Draft Analytics Guide, available today. Link is in the description for that. And I thank you guys so much for everything that you guys do in terms of supporting the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think about the Bears, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.